Welcome to this episode of Battlefield, Nevada. Today we have Danielle Ford, who's running for School Board District F. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we're going to talk about issues that really matter to a lot of people, and that's education. And it's probably the number one issue in this valley. And it is because, frankly, our school system here sucks. We are dead last behind Puerto Rico, behind Washington, D.C. I mean, we're dead last. And so you want to run, you want to represent the people here, and you want to make changes. What do you do to get us off being last? What's your solution?
Well, the system is broken, but the people in it are not. I am actually a product of the Clark County school system. I dropped out of high school. I was born and raised here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and to give you a little bit of a backstory, I went to a lot of different schools throughout my life. I was often the new kid and often having to catch up in class. So nobody caught that I had substance abuse happening on both sides of my family. And that's something that should have been caught because I should have had some people making sure that I was going to continue on the correct rate to graduate. So at an elementary school level, I think we need to have a higher focus on emotional intelligence and teaching kids that they're all supported, they're all worthy, they're all one. At a higher level, starting in middle school to high school, what I want to see is vocational programs being allowed and every single high school having them. I would not have dropped out if I had tech available or if there was a way for me to learn how to code. I would have completely stayed interested, and it would have been something that drove me to stay in school because I'm also ADHD. That was not caught. There was even to this day, a lot of kids go either misdiagnosed or not diagnosed as ADHD, and about 8% of kids have that. Girls especially go misdiagnosed because they tend to be seen as flighty or called an airhead, or people think it's cute, when you forget things.
But you bring up an interesting issue, and that is that a lot of times, even though the school might be doing everything right, the parents are the problem. And that's something politicians they don't like to say. They're not willing to say, which is the parents are not supporting the kids, they're not making sure the homework are done, they're not making sure they're attending school properly, they're not well fed perhaps at home. So the parents oftentimes are the problem.
I agree with that. I do agree with that.
You're willing to say that, running for office.
For sure. I mean, often I believe that the parents often are the problem, but if we're going to make parents send their kids to school, and it's going to be a law that they have to at least do homeschool, then we need to assume that every single child is coming from a bad situation where they're not getting help with their homework and they're not getting a meal maybe at dinner time. And yeah, the parents might be the problem, but you don't know the full extent. You don't know if it's a single mother. You don't know if both parents are working two jobs. You don't know if the parent has the emotional, mental capability to help the children with their problems, or if they even know how to do math. I can't help my daughter with math, I cannot. I had to put my daughter into tutoring during the summer to get her caught up with math. So you can say it's a problem, but...
So, as I said, we're dead last. Mm-hmm. How do we fix it? And you mentioned in your online post that you felt funding was an issue. How do we fix funding? What should we do with funding? How much money should we pay per child per year to go to school?
We need to pay as much money per child per year to go to school as it takes, right? We need to
raise taxes?
We do not raise taxes, but we need to allocate some of the taxes, like the room tax. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about why we have a meeting about the stadium, but we won't go discuss the room tax, why the casinos are so against doing a state lottery, but they don't want to fund education. So those are the things I want to talk about. I want to, when you have a budget crisis, you don't always have to look at the budget. Sometimes you have to look at ways to bring in more money. So although there has been misspending of the budget, for instance, we keep on hiring consultants that are people who have previously worked for CCSD. No, I want to bring in experts who have turned other school systems around, or maybe who have turned businesses around, and people that are creative thinkers and can look at our budget and tell us, what we can do within the budget, and at the same time, look at ways to bring in more money.
Isn't the real problem with the school district the fact that they're spending $120,000 a year on janitors, on electricians, HVAC guys? They're spending over $150,000 a year on several hundred bureaucrats, but they're only paying teachers $47,000 a year. Isn't that a misallocation of funding?
Yes, I absolutely think so. The vocational programs that I want, in my perfect world, I would love every high school to first of all have an on-site childcare program.
But should we cut the bureaucrats' salaries and raise teacher salaries? Do you support that idea?
I do support that idea, big time. I believe teachers are number one. Teachers need to be completely successful. They need to be funded. They need to be happy. They need to be healthy mentally and physically, and they need to come because they are ultimately the ones spending the most time with our biggest resource, which is our children.
Sure.
Yeah, so absolutely.
So if you're elected, you're going to cut bureaucrat salaries and reallocate that money and raise teacher salaries.
I'm going to look at it. I'll tell you personally, I don't want to say for sure because I don't have those numbers, right? But currently what's been happening and some people that have gotten elected recently, I would not have voted for those pay salaries. I would in fact have said the trustees should not take a salary until, and neither should, the administrators until the teachers are paid.
So according to my sources, Clark County School District is going to spend $500 million on an elaborate security camera system to prevent active shooters, to secure the campuses against active shooters. Is that the right policy? Do you support that policy? And if not, or what should we be doing to provide security against a potential future active shooter situation like we've seen around the country?
I think cameras and lighting and everything are important, but I don't think it's the first step at all. I think the first step is to secure the schools, absolutely, whatever the school needs, whether that's locks on the classroom doors.
Well, we did a story. You saw that where we drove through
I did see that.
the campus
Yep.
in our car, and no one stopped. There's no fences.
Yep. I walk right into my daughter's school all the time. Like I can go right into the cafeteria, gymnasium. Like no one's going to stop me. I could have any weapon.
Should there be one or two security guards or police at every campus 24/7 essentially, or during school hours?
Absolutely. There needs to be a armed guard, CCSD police, or like some sort of military professional. And at every single school, right now currently we have 2 guards at every high school, but none at middle schools. That doesn't make any sense. I want to see 1 armed guard at every single school with 1 entrance. Okay, many schools have multiple entry points. There should be 1 entrance, and whether a person is coming with a knife or a gun or whatever that is, they will not be able to get through. The camera is cool if we had the funds, but first let's secure our schools, lock them down, and get them protected before we go into all this extra spending.
Currently we have 140 Clark County School Police for 360 campuses. So you'd like to see us spend more money and hire more police so that they can provide security to those campuses?
Yeah, I need to learn more and look into how those contracts work because I've heard different opinions about, who puts the police there and where the spending goes to that and why they have brand new motorcycles, and there's a lot of questions kind of there. But ideally, yes, like 1 armed officer at every single school.
Excellent. And so the other issue related to security, of course, has been in the news. The president has offered $500 per month as an add-on for salaries to teachers who choose to carry a weapon, concealed carry, to protect themselves. We have a lot of veterans who are teachers. Mm-hmm. Should we be letting them be armed and coordinate with police and be trained?
I think if we took that money that they were going to give teachers and put it into securing the schools, that would just stop the problem right there. I think, I do not believe that teachers necessarily need to have guns in the classroom. I have heard some cases that would maybe make sense for it, but I still feel like that would be like number 6 to 10 down the line of things that we need to even be looking at. So I don't even know why that's a question when we know that our schools are not secure and that there are not armed
officers. Well, we have actually seen in other states armed teachers stop shooters.
We've also seen teachers shoot students.
Well, not so many, but
it's happened. And to me, if I don't want my kids in a classroom with a teacher who has a gun because to me that just creates crossfire.
Okay.
And so that's where I stand with it. I think if we'd secured the schools, if we had police, if we had cameras, if we had lighting, if we had a complete monitoring system, and for some reason people were still getting in with guns, at that point, I might be open to looking at the possibility of arming teachers.
Great. We're going to take a break right now, and we'll get back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Battlefield, Nevada. We're here with Danielle Ford, who's running for School Board District F, correct?
Yep.
Excellent. So we were talking about security, but one of the security issues that has been a disaster at Clark County School District this year is within the classroom, within the schools, and somehow 15 people working for Clark County School District have been arrested for molesting or child sexual misconduct with kids. You're a mother, you have children, you must be deeply concerned, and if you're running for office, how do we fight and protect our kids from this kind of thing?
Well, there's a few different things. A lot of it comes from teachers and inappropriate relationships. So, I don't want to victim blame by, telling the kids, here's how to navigate this, but at the same time, our sex ed curriculum is lacking. And it's especially lacking around teaching kids what an appropriate and inappropriate relationship is, and what a warning sign might be, and what to do if somebody might be crossing that line, first of all. A lot of it comes through communication. So I firmly believe in a policy, a zero tolerance policy for communication to students without the parents' consent or without it being public. So text messaging, email, private should not be happening. Because it's just can
that makes
snowball.
a lot of sense. Yeah. So in other words, teachers should not be texting their students off hours and going back and forth. It's too intimate.
And I have a lot of teachers that have come to me because I have said this publicly before, and they say, it gets really stressful because we might say you have a missing assignment, and maybe the parent's not going to be responsible for getting the kid to do it, so they just want to talk to the student, which I understand. But it should still be either, in today with technology, there are apps, there are group chats, there are ways to publicly have a paper trail. So if you need to communicate with a student, there's ways to do it that do not involve just one-on-one texting.
What about teachers going to birthday parties of their kids, of their students? Is that appropriate?
That's a really hard question for me because I am a parent and I have had teachers and different types of teachers show up to my kids' stuff. I think probably the line of where that would be drawn would be not on a private residence. Honestly, I've had my son was a Cub Scout leader, and he would go in and tell his teachers who maybe were previous Cub Scout leaders about the Pinewood Derby or what's happening, and
Sure.
It was awesome to see them show up and support. But that's a public environment where there are other leaders and adults. If it was going to be a birthday party at the house, I would say absolutely not. So I think there should be clear policies around what's okay and what's not.
So since these 15 people have been arrested this year, Clark County School District has really picked up their program of auditing, background checks of incoming staff. All staff have to clear background checks. However, the school district is hiring people on contract basis from employment agencies to drive trucks,
Right.
which end up on campus, and they're not background checked, and we've checked, and some of them are felons.
Right.
What do we need to do about that? What's your plan?
I think I don't have a plan, but I think that's an easy decision, that it should be a policy that if you are on a school property and maybe when they sign up, it is very clear to what instills the inner workings of the school, and if you're going to be doing that, you need to have a background check. It's not even a question, really.
So what are your 3 priorities if you're elected?
My 3 priorities would be getting teachers paid, because I paid and just
What should
anything
they
they
make?
need.
Do you have an idea how much they should make to
Well,
be competitive?
That's a really good question. I think, they leave, they're the only public office that has to pay for their own education. So they leave with debt, and then they come and they work for the government, and they get treated like crap and a bunch of rules enforced on them. So,
I do think their student loans do get forgiven after, I think, 10 years as a teacher, though. Is that correct?
Still, I'm sure
So you
they're
like to
still
see that
trying to.
improved?
Yeah, I would love, besides the whole conversation about education and college, free college, I think teachers should be free. That's a whole other thing. But, probably around like a $70K at least a year.
And you think that would make them attracted to Clark County School District so we can compete with the rest of the country?
Absolutely, and we can start creating more teachers. People don't even want to become teachers because they know the low pay and they know the crap that we're giving them. I don't understand.
Is there too much bureaucracy that is hoisted on them, paperwork and nonsense? I hear that a lot.
I don't like how much standardized testing the kids have to go through. I don't like the teacher evaluations. Teachers have already proven themselves by graduating with a degree that they know what they're doing. So why are we going to sit there and make them fill out all these little tiny questions? Like, we need to have trust in the people.
I'm going to ask you about that, the standardized testing. that went into effect because a lot of kids, frankly, were graduating who couldn't read their own diploma. So how do we make sure the kids that are graduating are actually able to read, or who can actually perform, who are ready to face, the degree means something? How do we know that?
Well, standardized tests were developed way before we had the technology that we currently have. So there are programs where you can, instead of taking a test, you just do the work, and it will find out what you have passed and what you have not passed. And then it will be very
so
clear.
Practical application testing.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's still a test.
Of course, testing absolutely is important, but the method that we're currently doing it is a waste of time. When my kids a couple years ago, the system completely crashed, and there was no testing scores for like 2 years. It was insane. What we're doing is not working.
So right now the teachers are teaching to the test to learn how to answer the questions, but they're not really teaching them how to think, how to actually perform. Is that really the issue?
Kids care more about their grades than they care about learning, which is sad. They don't care about what they learn. They're not like, man, I really hope that I learn enough so that I can be a doctor. They're like, I need to get an A. That's all they care about, so I can get into med school.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we change that?
There's a lot of ways. It starts with the standardized testing. It starts with changing the structure of the ways that teachers are able to teach. So instead of them teaching to the test, and instead of them being the person trying to lecture in the front of the classroom, we need to have that information available for students and let the teachers be there hands-on, helping them in the back end. We also I feel like we need to redefine what student achievement means. Is student achievement supposed to be you're kind of good at history and you're kind of good at science and you're kind of good at math and kind of good at English? Or is student achievement, hey, you were really good at tech and now we're going to put you into the engineering program and you're going to leave being able to fix a computer or build a computer? To me, that's achievement.
So you mentioned before vocational schools, and that's one of your priorities.
Yep.
And what if you thought would have made a big difference for you growing up?
Yeah.
We do have some vocational training now, which I know they have a vocational school in Reno, and they have a 98% graduation rate.
Right.
So why don't we copy that and put that down here and duplicate that?
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
Other schools, like the other states that are succeeding, people are graduating with nursing degrees and degrees or ready to go into a field. And when you say we're paying all this money to contractors, I believe that instilling vocational programs into every high school will reduce the cost that we're spending on other people because these kids can fix the shit. Can I say that word on here?
Sure.
Okay. The students can repair the walls, and they can work under. Even some of the unions, can come in and be part of that and make sure that it's done correctly. They can leave.
The culinary union actually works with the school up in Reno.
Right.
So,
I'm talking like across the board. Culinary. I would love to see a culinary program where kids learn actual food, like meal prep, like how to prep for a week, how to prep on a budget. And imagine if a single mom or a busy mom or dad could come by the school and pick up a meal ready to go for $5, and there's $5 that student just made for the school. They can graduate knowing that they just made their school $1,000, and that's going to give them self-esteem, and they'll leave with a skill set ready to join the workforce.
But that makes sense.
I know. I wish it didn't make so much sense. Maybe then we could do it.
What are your other priorities?
I really believe that we need to instill a policy where we need to focus as much on emotional intelligence as academic intelligence. I think the violence and the school shooting and the bullying across the board could be literally demolished, done, not even a question, if we started at an early age teaching kids how to express their feelings, how that feelings are okay to have, start giving them access to counselors and letting them know that everybody is their friend and that they're not alone. Because I ultimately believe that people who do school shootings, it comes down to loneliness and isolation. That's usually what they have said.
So school shootings have really been a phenomenon really in the last 15 years.
Right.
If you look back at history, we haven't had hardly any of them. In fact, schools used to have shooting programs. People brought their rifles and had shooting programs at the school in the basement, and they had ranges.
Right.
And so what has gone wrong in the last 20 years where we've gone from, because everyone's been bullied. Everyone's been bullied, and most people don't go out and shoot their friends and their colleagues in school, right? So what has gone wrong? Is it society? Is it broken homes, broken families? What is broken? What's going on? Why kids are all of a sudden picking up guns and shooting their fellow students?
I think there's a lot of theories about what that could be, and it's probably a mixture of everything. But I think ultimately it's the kids having access to a lot of things that they don't know how to. They don't properly process and understand, like the video games. I don't think video games are bad, but I think that they need to be discussed. TV shows, also social media. Kids need to know how to use social media and stare at a screen without isolating from other people. I think the way that we have treated men and made men feel like they cannot have feelings, and if they do, they're a P word, and if they're sensitive, then they're devalued or whatever. And a lot of that just really compounded, and it's created a lot of people. I mean, really, the people that are doing school shootings are white males, and there's probably a lot of entitlement there. A lot of them have, had their ego hurt.
I don't want to cut you off, but we're down to the last 2
Okay.
minutes. And I want to give you the last 2 minutes to tell people why they should vote, where they should vote, and give your website out.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have a lot more to say on this subject, and I do a lot of live streaming and live questions on my Facebook page. So the Facebook page is facebook.com/vote Danielle Ford, and the website is votedanielleford.com, where you can find just more general information about some of my stances. But really, social media is where you can contact me anytime. I have parents, teachers, people reaching out with their concerns, even about things I've said, and I'll clear up anything I've said or have an open discussion. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I don't have, a political experience, but I have parent experience, and I have experience as a student, and I feel like I have a lot to bring to the school board. And I don't have a problem saying no to people that other people wouldn't, or asking the hard questions, because I have absolutely nothing to lose.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thanks a lot. It's Danielle Ford, candidate for Clark County School District, District F, and you can check her out on the website. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode of Battlefield, Nevada.